Another way to save time when creating parts is to pattern repeating geometry. Linear patterns let you create copies of existing geometry in one or two directions in a single step. These copies, which are referred to as pattern instances, are based on the original geometry, or seed geometry, you select. This means that if you make a change to the seed geometry, the pattern instances will update to reflect the change. In this example, I want to replicate this hole into a series of holes. I want the series of holes organized into straight lines, so I'll use the linear pattern feature, available from the Insert drop-down menu, under Pattern/Mirror, or on the Features tab. Before I set the Direction 1 parameters, I'll select the geometry I wish to pattern. By selecting the geometry first, it will make it easier to adjust the direction parameters because a preview will appear in the graphics area. You can select Features, Faces, or Bodies to pattern. I want to pattern the hole, so I'll activate the Features to Pattern group box and select the hole, either from the Feature Manager tree or the graphics window. With the geometry selected, I can specify the direction of the pattern. I'll activate the Pattern Direction selection window and set the direction by selecting a model edge. But you can use any geometry that establishes a vector, such as a line, axis, or a dimension. If the pattern is going the wrong way, you can flip the direction from one side to the other using the arrow in the graphics area, or by selecting the Reverse Direction button. The next two options let you set the spacing and number of pattern instances. Spacing and instances lets you type in a value for the number of instances you create and the distance between them, while Up to Reference lets you use existing model geometry to define the number of instances and spacing. The Up to Reference option is beyond the scope of this course, so I'll go over it and other advanced linear pattern options in another course. I'll select Spacing and Instances. First, I'll set the spacing for the pattern. You can type in a value here, use the spin box, or use the flag in the graphics window. Next, I'll set the number of instances for the pattern. This value can also be set here or in the graphics area. You can also create a pattern in two directions by specifying the parameters in the Direction 2 group box. I'll activate the Pattern Direction window and make a selection. Notice the preview still shows the pattern going in one direction, although two directions are now active. This happened because the number of pattern instances is set to 1. I'll increase the value, and you can see the preview updates. You can see that the seed feature as well as the pattern instances are all being patterned along Direction 2. To only pattern the original hole in this direction, check the Pattern Seed Only checkbox. For this example, I'll leave this checkbox cleared. The preview looks good, so I'll click the green check, and the pattern is created. Like other features, you can edit the pattern by clicking the feature from the Feature Manager and selecting Edit Feature. Or in the graphics area, you can right-click on one of the pattern instances and select Edit Feature. I want to skip some instances of the patterned hole, so I'll go ahead and edit the pattern and scroll down to the Instances to Skip group box. When I select the Instances to Skip selection window, points appear in the center of each patterned hole in the preview. Each point I select will be a skipped instance. To restore a skipped instance, simply select the point again. An easy way to select multiple instances to skip is by using the Lasso selection tool. Once the Instances to Skip selection window is active, right-click on the graphics area and select Lasso Selection. I'll group select multiple instances, and you can see that they will now be skipped. If you only want to add instances to the Instances to Skip selection window, hold down the Shift key while group selecting. If you want to remove instances instead, hold down the Alt key while group selecting. The preview looks good, so I'll click OK. And you can see the pattern updates. Before wrapping up, I want to mention that you can quickly see the pattern information by hovering your cursor over the feature in the Feature Manager. And if you click the feature, Solidworks displays the seed feature and the pattern instances in two separate colors, allowing you to quickly distinguish between the seed geometry and pattern instances. In cases where geometry is repeated in a circular fashion, a circular pattern can be used. This is the icon for a circular pattern. Like most other features, it can also be launched from the drop-down menu. The first field prompts me to specify the center for the pattern by using an axis, a circular edge, or a cylindrical surface. I can create circular patterns of features, faces, or bodies. In this case, I'd like to pattern the hole. I can select it in the graphics area directly, or from the Feature Manager tree. Since I've got the equal spacing option checked, you can see in the preview that as I change the number of instances, Solidworks will evenly distribute the holes. This is true whether I'm using 360 degrees or any other value. If I clear the equal spacing option, I can directly control the spacing between each hole. You can also create a circular pattern in 2 directions by checking the Direction 2 checkbox. You can independently adjust the settings for each direction, or you can check the symmetric option to create the same pattern as in Direction 1. I'm satisfied with how the circular pattern looks, so I'll create the pattern by clicking the check. If you've created a linear or circular pattern and would like to vary the dimensions and locations of instances in the pattern, you can use the Instances to Vary option in the Pattern Property Manager. Note, this option is not available in the Circular Pattern tool when the Direction 2 box is checked. Here, for example, I have slot-shaped cutouts that I want to get progressively larger as they are patterned down the part. I'll start by editing the pattern feature and select the Instances to Vary group box. First, there's an option to increment the spacing between each instance by entering a value under Direction 1 increments. I'll enter 0.4 inches, and you can see a preview of the spacing in the graphics window. To vary the dimensions of each instance, activate the selection box, and then select the dimensions directly from the graphics window. Here, I'll select the width and the length of the slot. Once the dimensions are selected, a table populates with a column for the current values and a column for the incremental value. I'll increment the width of the slot by 0.1 inches, and increment the length of the slot 0.3 inches. If you have a linear pattern that goes in 2 directions, you can also vary instances in the second direction by activating the options below. My pattern only goes in one direction, so I'll skip these and click the green check to apply the changes. Now you can see how the size of each slot and the spacing between them progressively increases. You can also modify the dimension of a single instance. I'll edit the pattern once more. To modify a single instance, just hover the cursor over the instance marker. Then click and select Modify Instance. A flag appears, and any of the values here can be overridden. I'll make some changes. And when I click the green check, the pattern updates once more. If you decide to restore any of the instances to their original state, you can do so by editing the pattern. And in the Modified Instances box, just right-click the instance and select Delete. Or remove all the modifications at once by right-clicking in the box and selecting Clear Selections. If you're designing a part that is symmetric, you can save yourself time by using the Mirror feature. With the Mirror feature, you can replicate individual features, faces, or bodies. In this lesson, we'll take a look at mirroring features and one special case of mirroring bodies. When we talk about features, we're talking about 3D geometry, like this cutout here. In order to mirror 3D geometry, you need to have a plane, or a flat face to use as a reference. In this case, if I show the right plane, you can see it passes through the center of this part. I'll be using this plane to mirror the cutout. The mirror feature can be launched using this icon, or from the drop-down menu. Like with other features, all I have to do is go through the options in the Property Manager and click the green check to finish. First, you have to indicate which face or plane you want to use as my reference. You can select the plane here, or from the Feature Manager. I'll select the right plane. Next, you need to specify which feature you wish to mirror. As with the plane, you can either select the feature from the Feature Manager tree, or directly from the graphics window. To select a feature graphically, you must select a face that is unique to that feature. For example, to select this keyhole slot, I need to select one of these faces which is unique to the cut. After selecting a feature to mirror, right away you can see a preview of the geometry that will be replicated. To finish, I just click the green check and I'm done. Just like other features, the mirror feature will be listed in the Feature Manager tree. If you need to make a change, you can click on it and select Edit Feature. In this case, for example, I can add the boss to replicate both features at the same time. If the part you are modeling is completely symmetric, you can save even more time by modeling half of it and replicating the entire thing, rather than individual features. The same mirror feature is used to accomplish this. Instead of selecting a plane as my reference, I'll select this face. Since I'm not going to mirror individual features, I won't select anything in this window. Instead, I'll use the Bodies to Mirror selection window and pick any face of the model. Again, you'll see a preview of the geometry that will be replicated, and the green check will finish this feature.